My name is Councillor Joe Harris, and today I have the authority. This is Cotswold District Council Live. Good afternoon, my name is Councillor Joe Harris and I'm the leader of Cotswold District Council. We have a very special show for you lined up today. I'm joined today in the studio by Councillor Jenny Ford, our Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing, by Councillor Lisa Spivey, who is our Cabinet Member for Housing and Homelessness. Our Chief Executive joins us on the line, Robert Weaver, and today's very, very special guest, the one, the only, Jackie Weaver. Jackie, thank you for joining us. We're thrilled to be back on your screens and we've got an incredible show lined up for you. It's absolutely action-packed today. And this is your opportunity to learn all about what your local council is doing, ask us questions and help shape the future of our district. Today, we're talking about how you can get involved with local decision-making and also our new Clean and Green Cotswolds initiative. We'll also be taking your questions live and you can put your questions to our very special guest, Jackie Weaver, and she'll do her best to answer them on today's show. So, Jackie, welcome. It's been quite a few weeks and months for you, hasn't it?
It has indeed.
Fantastic. But you were saying just before the show, still doing the day job?
Yes, absolutely. And the day job is what keeps me grounded. Otherwise, I might begin to believe I really was a superstar.
Well, when we all saw you at the Brits, I think that's when we thought you probably had made it, Jackie. So, Jackie, tell us, what is your day job? Because everybody's seen you, and everybody saw you on the Handforth Parish Council meeting. Tell us, what is your day job?
Yeah, and of course, everybody has a different opinion as to what I was doing there. My day job is a fancy title, Chief Officer of the Cheshire Association of Local Councils. And although it's a very grand title, I, along with another team of two ladies, support our town and parish councils, 234 of them in Cheshire, with training, advice, guidance, hand-holding and occasional leg smacking where needed. That's what we do.
Fantastic. I tell you what I'm going to do, Jackie. I'm going to jump into a few questions, if we must. We've had lots of questions in. So we're going to start on topic, first of all. So we're going to start about parish councils and all things to do with local government. So can you tell us, what exactly does a parish clerk do?
I guess the way I would describe a parish clerk is that they're almost like the clerk to the court. That they're the person who needs to know all the rules and regulations in order to help members deliver the aspirations for their community.
Nice and succinct. You know, I couldn't have explained that better myself. I have to say. So, Jackie, what's the difference then between a parish clerk and a parish councillor? Because I think when we all watched Handforth, there was a bit of confusion as to who was doing what. So yeah, Jackie, tell us what's the difference and why are the roles different and why is it important that they're separate and different?
Yeah, I think in a Zoom meeting it is incredibly difficult to even tell the difference between the councillors and members of the public, to be honest. But the difference between them is that councillors are people that members of the public elect. They live among you like ordinary people, and they are people that you feel are able to represent your interests in your community, and you vote for them. Although parish councils can pay allowances to their councillors, most don't. So parish councillors are completely voluntary in the role that they do. The clerk, on the other hand, is not an elected person. They are a paid employee. Often they are the only paid employee of the council, and in a very small council might only work 3-4 hours a week. Large town council might actually have a fairly large staff, maybe 5-10 people working there, but they're paid, they're not political, and they are not elected. I think that's the main difference between the two.
Thanks, Jackie. And on that point then, so yeah, parish councils aren't usually known as being entirely political, but some are. Do you just want to, what's the difference then, do you think, between sort of those that stand for a party and those that perhaps don't? Why do you tend to have fewer on parish and town councils and more at district or county council level?
I used to say with some confidence that parish and town councils were not political. And then I began to realise that actually what I meant was they're not party political, but they most definitely can be political. So in the sense that, you'll have part of the parish council has a strong commitment or affiliation with the village hall or the church or something like that. So they can be quite tense in that sense, in that sort of almost confrontational sense with different competing interests. But I guess the biggest difference when it comes to the party politics is that most of the decisions that will be taken by a parish council don't actually have a political policy behind them. Shall we have swings or roundabouts in this play area? Hard to imagine being able to make that into a kind of politically based decision. So most of the time, even though you might have very committed politicians who sit on town and parish councils, they tend to leave their party at the door when they sit as a councillor in a parish or town council.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jackie. I want to talk briefly about access to democracy, and I think we all recognise that parish councillors, district councillors and even county councillors is not a particularly diverse field. And I hate to say it, I've been a young person now on a council for 10 years. It's been quite a lonely place at times, and I have certainly been in a minority. So Jackie, before I bring my studio colleagues in, can you just sort of tell us what do you think are the main barriers to a more diverse range of people getting involved?
Knowledge. I think one of the things that we find difficult, and I've been involved in local councils now for nearly 25 years, is that I think it's both a blessing and a curse that we are so parochial. So I think that we tend to be very quiet, we tend to work in the background most of the time, and we don't shout about what we actually do. Consequently, we don't tend to spread the word. And I think that there are definitely some councils that are willfully not representative of their communities. But I think often, particularly when we're talking about young people, and I'm not sure you can say you've been a young person for 10 years. That's like me saying I've been middle-aged for the last 10 years. Now I'm pushing it. I think that there are some councils that genuinely would welcome interest from diverse communities in within their parishes, but it's about how we bring those two parties together so that we give people the confidence to say, I might be interested.
Brilliant, thanks, Jackie. Lisa, I'm going to turn to you now. Now, you represent quite a big rural area, don't you? In the South Cotswold area, and I think it's fair to say you were thrown in at the deep end a little bit, weren't you? Elected for a rural ward back 2 years ago after the council elections. You then found yourself having to go to parish council meetings. Sort of tell us about your experiences. Not asking you to name names or specify anybody or any council, but tell us about some of your experiences, because I know that when Jackie went viral with her experiences, you were sort of going, well, fortunately I can relate to some of that.
It was a baptism by fire, that's for sure. It was my first time being involved in local government, in local politics, and I have to say that it's really interesting what you say, Jackie, about knowledge and diverse interests being out there, because I feel that what happens is people don't necessarily know what happens, and that leads to an environment which isn't particularly welcoming, especially for women, I am middle-aged, and yet I am seen as a young person. I'm asked a lot of it. Oh goodness, well you're very young, aren't you? Obviously not compared to Jo Harris here. So I think that's been something that I've had to overcome, is that I have felt not necessarily unwelcomed, but it wasn't a welcoming environment in a lot of places. I think there are a lot of parish councils where the people have lived there for a very, very long time. They've been involved. They've been a small group as well involved within the parish council. It tends to be a lot of the same people, and quite rightly, they take ownership over their communities. I think they've got their community's interests at heart. But are they always 100% representative of the entire community? Probably not, no.
Yeah. So Jackie, I can see you nodding along there. That sounds like a familiar story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, but I also kind of put a kind of challenge out there to the community. I know that certainly in Cheshire, many of our councils have worked quite hard to try and attract other people to come forward with relatively little success, particularly among the, in the case of Joe, very young.
Stop it, you're flattering me. My God.
So, and it's been sort of singularly unsuccessful. So it's really about encouraging it to be a two-way conversation, so the parishes to be open, but also for the community to kind of take a step towards them.
Thanks, Jackie. Jenny, again, you've got a big rural area as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you know all about all about parish councils and the fun that parish councils can have. Just give us your observations, and again, sort of same challenge that I put to Lisa. What are your experiences, and what do you think? What have been the barriers?
Yeah, very similar to Lisa. I think when I started 6 years ago, I had very young children, and I did find it very difficult because I feel like in local government you're in that catch-22 situation where, because the local government isn't representative of young women with children, you can't get things changed. So therefore it's difficult to stand and then be part of that, because you have to pick the kids up, or you can't get out to the parish council meeting in the local village hall because you actually need someone to look after the children and put them to bed and make sure they're okay. So there's all of that sort of stuff, and I think there's all that burden of life and life laundry that women unfortunately still take the bulk of, which means that it kind of precludes them from being part of the local government that then makes the decisions that improves lives for people with children. So it's about, I think you have to take a bit of a risk and know that there will be one or two people that will have your back and will support you. And that's really important, I think, to seek those out as soon as you can and actually ask other people to stand. So, Joe and I, when we found Lisa, we lobbied her hard and said that we would be there to support her, and I hope that we do. But I think it's really important that you do that you continually ask women to stand and participate, because then once they're involved, it's much easier, isn't it? So Lisa and I have been in meetings, for example, where they've said, we're going to do something in half term, and we've said, well, actually, we can't make that because it's half term. And then everyone else around the table goes, actually, okay, then that's fine, we'll move the meeting. And it's that sort of thing, isn't it? That you just kind of, once you're in there, you get the benefits of the diversity. But I think it's sort of seeking out those people that will support you so that you can make a difference.
Brilliant. And you sort of answered my second question there, Jenny, around, how can we get more, yes, women, but also younger people and, underrepresented groups, if you want to try and stand. Do you want to, before I go back to Jackie, let's bring in Lisa. Do you want to sort of try and give that one a stab?
Well, I think Jackie had a good point about that being a two-way street. And I find potentially in my communities that perhaps there is, again, a lack of knowledge about what the parish council does and how that can really, really help their community. So I always encourage, my parish councils to really reach out to all the residents and to explain what they do, because, the parish councillors work really, really hard. They're always doing all the little jobs that actually I think in some cases residents think somebody else does. And they don't realise, that it's Jimmy from down the road who's fixed the drain pipe at the bus shelter, and it's, Johnny from up the street who's gone out and mown the grass around the War Memorial, for example, that it's all these little jobs. They just think, somebody else does it. And I think that way of explaining, and I think that, what we've seen during COVID is so many people want to get involved with their communities and they want to participate and they want to be helpful. So if there was an explanation and saying, have you got an hour to spare on Saturday morning or Tuesday afternoon or whenever is free, then there's these list of little jobs which you can get involved in. And I think, people do want to do that. And especially when we live in somewhere like the Cotswolds, small villages, great sense sense of community and they want to get involved. So I think lots of sort of explaining about how you can get involved, that it's not just about, meetings and, Handforth obviously went a bit viral. I think to some respects people might think that's a bad thing, but there are lots of small jobs that can be really, really helpful. So.
Brilliant. So So Jackie, same question to you then. How, in your experience, how can we get more people involved? Answer that, and I've got one more for you, if you may.
Okay, I think one of the things I've been banging on about over the last it's only 3 months, but it does seem a little bit longer than that. Is the inclusivity in the total sense of the word. I feel that everybody has a part to play. Personally, I have the greatest of respect for councillors, but I don't want to be one. I tried it for 3 years, it wasn't for me. And it means, for me, that means that, that there is something that you can do as an individual to involve you in local democracy, and you can find the level, the pitch at which you want to make that contribution. And one of the things I say is, even if you only bear witness, you look at what the council is doing, you watch it, you always provide a scrutiny role, that in itself is helpful. And I think that we're sometimes afraid that if we commit ourselves, we're always going on about how hard-working councillors are. And a lot of councillors are very hard-working. So if we send that out as a message, then as soon as we reach somebody who potentially might be a victim, a councillor, we immediately put them off because they think they've sold their body and soul. But actually, we can involve people in councils through co-option without them actually being councillors. So they can contribute to, supposing they have a Friends of the Park committee. And their passion is, the outside environment, etc. They can involve themselves in that committee at a non-voting co-optee without having to be involved in the whole of the council business. So there's lots of different ways in which you can literally dip your toe in the water. And kind of a final point when it comes to accessibility. Unfortunately, on the 7th of May, we lost the ability to hold virtual meetings because the COVID regulations only allowed us to have virtual meetings for a 12-month period. And we are lobbying extremely hard at the moment. The government has a call for evidence out, saying to government, look, in this day and age, we have to be able to have meetings in this way. It supports everything that we're trying to do as local authorities. The list is endless. Inclusivity, the fact that, it's reducing the carbon footprint, all those reasons. The way in which people are able, if they're anxious about I think one of the councillors said about, the environment walking into a council meeting isn't always as friendly as you might hope, but it's much easier to do on a Zoom or a Teams meeting. So we have got to be able to retain the ability to hold virtual meetings. And that, I think, is going to be as helpful as anything in encouraging involvement.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, we've got our annual council meeting tomorrow at the district council, and we're having to hire the big Baptist church. You know, people are going to be. Yes, from a safety point of view, and obviously with the last year, we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable. But we're also spending so much money on that, which we know that finances are. We have to be careful with our finances at the minute, and it's quite regrettable. Jackie, I think just a final question. On this, if I may. Obviously, we're Cotswold District Council Live, we're the District Council. What can we do as a local authority to support our town and parishes and try and get more people involved, if indeed you think that's our role too?
I'm not sure it's your role, but I think it's incredibly helpful if you do it. Again, in Cheshire, that's where my experience lies. We have two unitary authorities, so we don't have a county council, we have a district council in the east and the west. And we do a lot of work with them in having, we used to have face-to-face, but now virtual meetings between the district and the parish councils. And what we are finding is, because money is tight, you may or may not have noticed, we're beginning to look more and more to our parishes to help deliver for our communities. Something that started and grew apace during COVID. It had a natural enhancement during COVID. But since, I mean, COVID's not quite over yet, but we're still kind of seeing that moving forward. And our district council is kind of providing the, I would say, tech support and a level of hand-holding for parish councils as they look at taking on different services and assets. So I guess it's that. It's almost, I wouldn't say maternal or paternal, I'd almost say it's like Big Brother, but not in a kind of watching way, just someone there giving you a helping hand to move up.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm going to go to a few questions now. Colin Pierce on Facebook has just said, can you tell people the three tiers? Tiers of local council? So yeah, Jackie, you touched on it there. You're very lucky. You've got a unitary authority up where you are. I don't know. Maybe you're not lucky. Maybe you feel like it hasn't worked. But here in the Cotswolds, we've got the county council, so they sit atop the tree, if you like. We've got the district council, which is what we are. We sit in the middle, and obviously we have our town and parishes, who some would argue are the most important. You know, they're the closest to the people. So yeah, three tiers of local government here in Gloucestershire. Thanks, Colin, for picking that one up. This is from Janice, and Janice is just over the border in North Wiltshire, but we will forgive her. Unitary area. By the time of your Cotswold Live session, I'm likely to have been co-opted to a parish council just over the border in North Wiltshire. Jackie, what advice would you give to Janice? How can you coach her or advise her?
Well, first of all, you need to read your standing order.
Jackie, did you read the standing orders in the end, or had you read them before the meeting?
Absolutely.
Sure, I'm very pleased to hear that.
But seriously, the standing order, I think when you're a new councillor in a parish council, you have a quick look on their website and you see more policies than you'd expect in a multinational company. And you start to think, what have I let myself in for? Okay, these are all important, they have their time and place. But if you're trying to get to grips with the job quite quickly, the standing orders are the easiest place to get a rounded feeling and understanding of how that council operates. So if you read nothing else, read the standing orders, read them and understand them, and also have a look on the nalc.gov.uk website and download a copy of the Good Councillor's Guide, and that should have you set up.
Fantastic. NALC are brilliant, aren't they? They're a really good organisation, and yeah, when I was a parish councillor a few years ago, had great fun at the conference up in London. There's a really good people in at parish and town level. Okie dokie. Let's go to, here we go. So this is from a resident in Morton. How can I become a parish councillor? Politics has historically been filled with old white men. How can younger people get involved? Jackie.
Old white men do not live forever.
That is a great quote.
We're not wishing for them to be
No, absolutely
later. But well, first of all, every 4 years, the whole council retires. And I don't mean as in old age, but they step down from their seats, and that is your opportunity to test whether or not your community is ready for some young blood. So, the most you've got, 3 years to wait if you've just had an election. Give yourself some time you can read the standing orders, even if you're not a councillor, you can read the Good Councillor's Guide, etc. And then when it comes to, before the election, get your, I think we said something rude there, get organised. And get out there and canvass the local community, telling them what you are going to bring to the table and why they should vote for you rather than the older white gentleman.
Very good. Lisa, let's go to you, because just on that very quickly, obviously, congratulations, you've recently been elected to the county council.
Thank
you.
You.
You spoke to a lot of people on the doorstep. What's the value in doing that for this residents' benefit?
Oh, I think it just can't be underestimated, actually, that power of just speaking to people and then, being able to understand what their concerns and issues are, because it's really true that unless you can understand what your residents want to see happen within their own communities, then how can you represent them? So I think absolutely it's a brilliant thing to do, and it's just really nice. I think if you're going to be involved in politics at any level, you do need to be a people person as well. So, getting out there on the doorstep, really nice. I love chatting to residents. It's one of my favourite things to do, actually. I love a chat.
Brilliant. Janice, who asked the question about being co-opted and advice to new councillors, has just commented saying, Jackie, I've read them once and I will certainly read them again. Thank you very much. Right, we've got one more, and then I think we'll move on to our next item, but we will come back for some more questions a bit later in the show. So if you have got any, please post them in the comments section below and we will get to them. Let's go to, so this is Leonard from Bourton on the Water, lovely place. Jackie, do you get paid to be a parish clerk, and what training do you need to undertake in order to become one?
Okay. You do get paid. Okay, it is a formal post and it's an employee of the council. However, that's why I hesitated over the question, there are some very small councils where they just don't get paid, but that's their choice. They do it as a service to the community, and then we have the opposite end of the scale where you have a town clerk, and clearly that is a professional post. There is a qualification. It's called the Certificate in Local Council Administration, or we naturally call it the SILCA qualification because that's quite long. It costs around £1,000 with fees, etc. To obtain, but it is a demonstration of a level of competence to be a clerk. However, you don't have to be qualified in order to be a clerk. And I think that's one of the things that is perhaps problematic in the sector. And I think that it's the kind of thing that 20 years ago, it truly was, I think if you could type, and I don't mean on a keyboard, I mean on a typewriter, then you got the job. It was as simple as that. But over the years, the role of the clerk, the role of the council has changed dramatically. And in fact, the amount of knowledge that we expect our clerks to have really warrants somebody who has been trained.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jackie. We're going to go now to a quick VT about our clean and green Cotswolds. But Jackie is going to be staying with us for the rest of the show. We've got about 20 minutes left, so do get your questions in by commenting on Facebook or on YouTube or whatever platform you are watching on. So a quick VT now about our clean and green Cotswolds initiative. I am delighted to announce Cotswold District Council's exciting new project, Clean and Green Cotswolds. Now, this scheme will tackle the things we know you care about and that you contact us about, from litter to dog fouling, street signs to fly tipping. We are investing in these issues, but we need your help.
That's right, everyone has a role to play in keeping this fantastic part of the UK attractive. And we know there are already lots of community groups and volunteers out there already doing their bit. And we're going to do our bit too.
So we are recruiting more staff to help communities to help themselves.
That's right. What we want you to do is get in touch with us if you're a parish council, a school or another community group, and think about how you can get involved.
So keep an eye on our social media channels for ways you and your community can become clean and green. Let's do this. So yes, our Clean and Green initiative, formerly known as our Civic Pride Agenda, a bit of new branding. So we're launching that in the next few weeks, and it's an opportune time really, as we're about to have the Great British Spring Clean from the 28th of May to the 13th of June. Rob, we've got Rob Weaver here, our Chief Executive. Rob, you've been very quiet and well behaved so far, and Rob Weaver is no relation to Jackie Weaver, I am assured. So Rob, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about the Clean and Green initiative and what you and your team are working on our behalf?
Yeah, thanks very much, Joe. And it links very closely to what Jackie was saying earlier about making sure that town and parish councils are working as closely as they possibly can with their district colleagues. And the Clean and Green agenda is essentially looking at all the small things that add up to give that sense of pride in the neighbourhood. And when people visit an area, they look at it and they think, yeah, this is a nice place. It's well kept. It's not littered. There isn't a man of fly tipping everywhere. It feels like this place has got a sense of pride. So what we're largely trying to do around the Clean and Green initiative is proactively look at some of those issues that always give rise to problems, like littering, like dog fouling, like fly tipping, like dirty road signs, and look at ways that we can more proactively deal with those. So, for example, our Ubico colleagues do a great job. They're out and about all day, every day. They have hot water facilities on a lot of their vehicles. So rather than us waiting till we get complaints about dirty street signs, for example, we can say to our Ubico colleagues, right guys, if you see them and they need cleaning, clean them. Let us know you've done it, and you can bill us on a monthly basis, and we'll make sure that we've got a more proactive approach to something as simple as keeping street signs clean. So it's very much, Joe, around how we can be more proactive in terms of the things that make a real difference and that really matter to residents and businesses in the area.
So, Rob, we had a big discussion about parish councils today, and obviously parish councils, engaging them in this piece of work is going to be key. But equally, we all know that highways can be a bit of a pain to work with sometimes. So how are we going to link this piece of work up with the other authorities? Because obviously, as a district, we've got some statutory responsibilities, but a lot of the people we need to act are not us. So, you want to just expand on that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And what we need to do, what we want to do very closely, is work with those town and parish councils and community and voluntary groups to help them help themselves. And that isn't a dismissive comment. It's more a case of how can the district council facilitate those groups to do more. So we know, for example, that we've got lots of really good litter pickers out there who go out in all weathers, picking in their local areas. And for the sake of us providing them with some high-vis jackets, litter pickers, a bit of training, and some development opportunities, as well as explaining to them more generally what we're doing as a local authority, we can help that group do more. That isn't more resource to the council, or where there are resource implications, they're usually pretty small and very manageable. But it's us capitalising on some of the great work that's already going on out there without trying to take direct control and do it ourselves. And I think historically local authorities have been a little bit too prescriptive, a little bit too command and control. And those times are gone. It's all about the community paradigm now, and how do we get the communities helping themselves, and how do we give them the support to do that. So it's very much around, we want to hear from those town and parish councils that have got voluntary groups and that want some support from us, and we want them to get in touch with me, with you, Joe, with any of us to say, we've got some great initiatives going on, but for the sake of a bit of extra resource around whatever it might be, we could do so much more. And we want to help them far more than we've currently been doing, because we don't really have a great idea about all those really good initiatives that are going on. So we need to get a bit more knowledge base in particular.
Brilliant. I think you sort of touched on it there. We're going to be working with people, but I think the position that we're adopting is that there are some things that we have a statutory service for. So street signs is a really, really good example, actually, where we have to, by law, we have to make sure we have street signs. So what we've done as part of the Civic Pride agenda, worked at, just touching them up a little bit, improving them, enhancing the design a little bit. And yeah, we're going to be rolling those out over the next few years, as and when signs need replacing. Again, Rob, I think you said it at the beginning. It's all those little things that can add up to a big difference and really improve that sense of place. I'm going to bring in my two studio guests first. So yes, Civic Pride, Clean and Green Cotswolds, Lisa. What does it sort of mean for you? So you've got lots of parish councils. What are their sort of biggest gripes when it comes to the sort of public realm?
I think the ones the classics that have already been mentioned is the littering in the verges, it's dog fouling, it's just all this sort of low-level antisocial behaviour. Really, actually, it's something that we would expect residents, locals to get on with and not do. But when it happens, it's just makes life not very pleasant. And I think, especially coming from the Cotswolds, living in the Cotswolds, it's such it's an internationally iconic location. We've got, we travel around our district, but we've also got visitors coming, in normal times from all over the world. It's an embarrassment to see littering, etc. So I think that people are really keen not only to protect the landscape for themselves, but also to be able to have pride in that. And to show it off, really. So I think it's high on the agenda, and I think Jenny will say, it comes up in parish council meetings all the time.
Yeah, Jenny,
I mean, it also comes up in our community safety partnership meetings. So there's been lots of links between how people feel about their community and about their neighbourhood, and actually feelings of safety when things are clean and green and looked after and well kept. We do know actually that serious organised crime groups hate connected communities and communities where people are looking out for each other and looking after their environment. There's a reason why there's zero tolerance for things like graffiti and what have you in some of those big cities. So I think, there's no reason why that should be any different in our rural communities. So it can really contribute to feelings of safety and the reality of safe neighbourhoods too.
Thanks, Jenny. And I think a final thing from me to add on this is that clearly there are some. We don't want residents litter picking on 70-mile-an-hour grass verges. So there's going to be some things where, as a district council, we need to be more proactive about, and we will look at doing it. And that's where a lot of our investment will come. So it's an approach which is helping residents to help themselves, but in those areas that clearly we don't want to put the public in danger, we will look at being more proactive. So we've spoken about wildflower planting in the past, haven't we, Lisa? Jenny, we've got in the area that we represent, Badgington, really good example where the pavement's disappeared because it's never been cleaned. So it's these are the areas that we can do a little bit more on. Jackie, I want to bring you in. At parish council level, these are quite often the bread and butter, the bread and butter issues. What's it like up where you are? I'm sure it's a beautiful part of the country. Do you have these sorts of concerns and issues too in your parishes?
You could have been talking about Cheshire. Exactly the same things come up. What I do think is interesting is that there was precious little positive coming out of COVID. But for us, a positive was the way in which our local councils began to work much more closely with the voluntary sector. Now, I don't know if it's the same in the Cotswolds, but certainly in Cheshire, there's always been a certain tension between them. It kind of felt like, they're almost two separate parties. We may have the same objectives, but we're going to get there in a different route. And what we saw during COVID was a real joining up of effort within communities between the parish councils and the voluntary groups within their area. I mean, if anybody would like to check that out, have a look on the CHALT website. That's chalt.gov.uk, and we've got 3 charming little cameo videos that we produced in the middle of COVID, in a COVID secure way, of course. Just showing how they came together. I think it was excellent. It's a small thing, but parishes recognising that they, as councillors, they don't have to do it all themselves, that they have a leadership role, that they have the ability, they have the finances, they have the resources to encourage community groups within their parishes. So us working together really makes a huge difference. And it's the kind of thing that you're talking about collecting waste, about cleaning verges and signs and things like that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jackie. Let's go to a few questions now. So Amanda Jane Davis, a regular viewer. Amanda, great to have you watching today. Have you heard of #Pristine Parish? Check it out, Little Rislington based. It's litter picking routinely, twice a week, walking with a purpose. So we abolish the need to litter pick as the longest litter lingers for 3 days. Check it out. That is exactly the sort of initiative that we want to be backing. And we have loads of communities that are actually already going out and litter picking. If we can get a bit of organisation, work out who's going where, we can actually get quite a comprehensive coverage. And as I said, the district council will fill in where residents can't. Colin in Tetbury. Joe, what investment by CDC will help Tetbury? We've got a major dog fouling problem. Well, dog fouling is a big issue everywhere, so we've invested in those staff. So Kevin, who is our fantastic, he was our environmental crime officer, but he's now our sort of lead civic pride officer, or clean and green officer, I guess we're calling him now. Kevin and his team will be absolutely proactive in trying to tackle dog fouling, but also other forms of, I guess it's littering, or antisocial behaviour, fly tipping, etc. And everybody that's worked with Kev always says he does a brilliant job, and they love working with him. Right, we've got one from David Prosser. This is we're just going to jump very quickly back. So I'm going to bring David back in a minute. We're going to stick with our clean and green, and then we'll come back to some of the more general questions around parish councils. Again, Amanda, the street signs look great as replacements in urban areas. Not sure about rural areas. Thanks for the feedback, Amanda. Appreciate it. We've got another one. Do you think CDC cabinet councillors could attend parish council meetings to show help and support on a regular basis? Well, some of them have. Our cabinet members do have parishes, so there you go. But yes, Colin, I think what you're getting at is right. I know Rob, our chief executive, Rob on the line, and I, we're going to have a bit of a tour of the Cotswolds, aren't we? To go and visit some of our parish councils as they start meeting in person again. Very useful person is always Andrew Doherty, who's our lead member for waste and recycling. He is a freak of nature, isn't he? When it comes to knowledge on waste, it's seriously impressive. So yeah, folks. Anything to do with our Clean and Green campaign, please get in touch. We will help you as far as we can, and we will try our best to be as proactive as we can. We've got a very quick outro segment to this to this piece, which is some of our litter pickers here in the Cotswolds. We'll then come back and put some more questions to Jackie.
Pauline Farman, and I live in Perrotsbrook, and driving from Perrotsbrook to Renkham every day, I saw the litter on the side of the road, and coming up to retirement, I thought, I'm going to litter pick. That's what I'm going to do in retirement. We live in such a beautiful part of the country that it just seems terrible that people are quite happy to throw stuff out of their car windows, because most of the stuff that I pick up, it has been thrown from moving vehicles.
My name's Heather Kent, I'm 13 and I go to farmer's school in Fairford. I started litter picking in late 2017 when I saw a video just before I was about to go on holiday, some celebrities doing a beach clean. So I did a beach clean in Dawlish, which is in Devon, and I wanted to bring it back to the local area because I thought it was a very important matter. We live in a beautiful place and we should look after it, but also it's killing our beautiful wildlife that we have, and I don't understand why people litter, but if people don't take action, it's just we'll be so upset that it's ruined the beautiful areas that we live in. So people need to take action now, because we don't realise the problem and how bad it is until you actually get out there and make a difference yourself. So I think it's just so important that everybody tries to make their own difference, no matter how big or small. I think it's really good that the council are trying to get people involved, because otherwise the problem's just going to carry on getting worse and not get better. So if we all get involved, it'll make the problem much better. So I think it's such a great thing that the council are trying to get people involved, because it's such an important matter to take action towards.
Brilliant, fantastic, inspirational stuff there. You know what great guys. Pauline, she's one of your constituents, isn't she, Jenny? She goes out every week.
To take the reflected glory from.
Pleased to hear it. Right, so open questions then. Let's start with one on the Clean and Green campaign. This is from Kevin in Willersey. So our question is, why has support for parish councils and residents who are trying to keep their part of the Cotswolds clean and green been reduced? For example, the Great British Spring Clean. A few years ago, this was supported by CDC with the loan of litter pickers, gloves, yellow vests and a roll of bags. Last year we received 6 plastic bags. Dog bins, our parish population has increased in size, some 30% over the last few years, with a corresponding increase in council tax to CDC. Yet when we requested 2 additional bins, we were refused. We question why CDC makes statements on the importance of safeguarding the environment, but in practice are indifferent to those trying to do so. A little bit unfair, I think, but we like the tough questions. So, Rob, the reason we set this up is to address exactly that issue. I think we do recognise that in some areas support has reduced. So, Rob, do you want to pick that one up as our? Actually, Kevin's the clerk of Willersey Parish Council, so a parish clerk there. So, Rob, officer to officer, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks for the question. Know Willersey area really, really well, having grown up not a million miles from there. And as you said, Joe, this is exactly what we're trying to do. It's about invest to save. And providing litter picking bags, litter picking tools, litter picking gloves means that communities can take care of a lot of these issues themselves with our support. Otherwise, things get to a point where we have to send out a bigger vehicle to do a bigger litter pick, or we need to close off an area of road to try and do a litter pick with Ubico, for example. And the costs of that are significantly greater than they would be providing you guys with the tools that you need to do the job. So absolutely, those are the kind of things that would be great to have some conversations around and look at where we can work together to be able to provide those tools and facilities to make it easier for everybody.
Thanks, Rob. Next question from David Prosser. Would the role of parish councillor be more attractive if the council's decisions carried more weight in local planning? I can see my colleagues violently nodding here. Jackie, I'd like your input on that. So if the views of the parish council have more weight in planning, do you think more people would get involved? Because we know that planning is a big issue for lots of parish councillors.
Planning is a big issue for parish councils, and over the years there have been all sorts of initiatives tried. In Telford and the Wrekin, in fact, they actually gave delegated powers for a while to a group of parish councils to make determinations on planning applications.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That went so well, we don't do it now. And I guess it's a personal observation. As parish councillors, we spend far too much time looking at individual planning applications, and we don't spend nearly enough time doing the hard stuff, which is looking at strategic planning. And actually our frustration is about how comments aren't taken on board when we're talking about individual planning applications, and really what we should be worrying about is making sure that you hear our views on strategic planning. And I think that's something where district council can help, because I think it can be difficult for some councils to understand how to influence strategic planning, and indeed sometimes I don't think we make it very easy in terms of the size of the documents that are sent out, etc. So I guess it's about focus your attention if you want to make a difference in planning in your area onto strategic planning rather than development planning is kind of how I see it.
Lisa, I know one of the big gripes of a lot of your parishes in particular is around planning and not really feeling like they're listened to when, it's a system more than anything, you would argue. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's really, really difficult, and that's an interesting point that you make, Jackie, about that difference between individual planning applications and the bigger picture. I think that certainly the feedback I get from my parishes is that they often feel that the individual decisions on individual applications perhaps don't fit in with what their understanding of the bigger picture is. And they feel thwarted by that, and the fact that, although they are a statutory consultee, if they make objections, then when those objections are not upheld, then that makes them feel like their voices are unheard or simply disregarded. I think that, the planning system is not necessarily working in their favour, and a bigger understanding of that. Even as a district council and being a local planning authority, there are decisions that we have to make on the balance. Mm-hmm. Because we are also dictated to by central government planning issues. The number of houses that have to be built in the Cotswolds, where 80% of our district is in the AONB, means that we have to essentially shoehorn all of our development, all 500 houses every year that we must statutorily build out, have to be in 20% of our district. That causes issues for us, but yet as a local authority it's very difficult for us to do that, and I think our residents in our parishes feel very done to by the system.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. An interesting one. It's really tricky, particularly because a lot of people become parish councillors off the back of a planning issue, don't they? So it is tricky.
It's very
David,
emotional as well.
It is
planning.
absolutely. David, great question. Thank you. We've got a question here from Sophia in Stowe. This is to Jenny. I've seen you've launched a crowdfunding project. My community has an idea for a project. How do we get involved?
Oh, yes. Great to hear from you, and please do get in touch. You just basically go on to spacehive.com and search for Crowdfund Cotswold, and you can set up your project there, and then we'll be in touch with you to support you. We've got 12 projects going at the moment. This is our very first time that we've done it, and we've got a real range of projects. We've got the Black Rural History Project. We've got things like Avening and our fund raising for a zip wire. We've got Cotswold Chat, which is a chat and counselling service for young people. We've got Project Blackjack, which is about reinstating an historical statue onto the church. And all sorts of individuals and businesses can get involved as well. So, for example, I've seen today that in Chipping Camden, where they're fundraising for an amphitheatre, the Red Lion Tavern has just recently donated some money. So it's a really good way for businesses and local communities to get involved and really get behind local projects. And we've just been so impressed by everybody in the Cotswolds.
And Jackie, you're nodding there. I think you've heard of Space Hive.
Yeah, we have it in Cheshire as well.
Fantastic. Brilliant. I've got a comment here from Charlotte. I've made a curry for dinner, Jackie. Would you like to come round? We'll take
yes.
that. Well, there we go. There we go. Brilliant. We've got a few more questions, and we will, I'm afraid, have to wrap up. Natasha Crossman on Facebook. Still potholes in Cotswold main roads. When is this getting sorted? Natasha, we know we're just as frustrated as potholes as you are, as you'll have seen from all the election stuff. I think all parties campaigned on the roads. Unfortunately, when the government cuts money to the county council, yet the social care bill goes like that, who's going to win? Is it the old people and the younger people we have to care for, the children, or is it going to be the roads? I mean, those are the sorts of choices that the county council are having to make. Rosemary Andrew says, hang on a minute, there are some roads being done outside Dobbies in Cirencester and some of the back roads in Fairford. So yes, it's a never-ending battle. We've got Mary Cobbett. She says Cirencester are working on their neighbourhood plan. Can you tell us how you plan to take this into account in your local plan? Rob, answer that for us.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Mary, for the question. And if you're the Mary I'm thinking of, you're quite heavily involved in some of the local planning around Cirencester, which is brilliant. As you know, we're doing a partial refresh of our local plan, and we're engaging with a lot of our town centres, our villages, and especially those areas that are already looking at part of their own master plans to make sure we're feeding into that process. So we've got a fantastic guy called James Brain, and what he doesn't know about forward planning isn't worth knowing. And James is leading that partial local plan refresh. So if he hasn't already been in touch, Mary, he will be, to make sure your thoughts and your views are taken into account.
Brilliant. Another one on planning for you, Rob. Is the scheduling of planning applications on a first-come, first-served basis or on a geographical basis? For example, GL7 one week and GL8 the following week.
No, I don't feel that's that simple, Joe. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of work that goes into around scheduling planning applications, and each case officer will have a number of cases that they will process, and it's not done on geographical areas as such. It's done on each individual's officer's ability to understand that area. Sometimes if they've been involved in planning applications in that area in the past, then they will be allocated further applications because they build up that geographical knowledge. But clearly what we're really keen to do is we will look to allocate applications on the basis of getting dealt with as soon as we possibly can. So whichever officer is best placed to be able to pick those up will more than often than not run with those applications.
Brilliant. Right, we're going to do 3 more questions. Jason, aged 11. I have a question for Councillor Harris, me. I'm really keen to start litter picking in my local area. How do I get involved, and what can the council do to help me and others like me raise awareness? Well, Jason, get your parents to come down to the council offices. We will give you the equipment you need to go out and start litter picking. Rob and I were having a conversation the other day about having volunteer high vis. So we will even provide you with some high vis jackets, which will make you look very smart and make sure you're safe. So yeah, get in contact, Jason. Get your parents to come down, and we will give you everything you need. Another one for me. This is from Nancy in South Surrey. Councillor Harris, you've been involved with politics from a very young age. What inspired you to become a councillor, and what would you say to other young people wanting to step into the political arena? When I say a very young age, I wasn't in the pram and particularly political, but I have been a councillor since I was 18. What would I say? What would my advice be? Get involved, absolutely, but make sure. Here are my 2 top tips. Be organised. For a couple of years, I was thrown into it, elected at the age of 18, and it was all quite overwhelming. So be organised and don't overpromise. Particularly on a local level, you can't do it. You can't promise to do everything because there just isn't the money. But you can make a difference with hard work and with a great team around you. And I feel very blessed that I've got a great team around me. So yeah, Nancy, get involved, get in touch if you want to get involved. More than happy to have a chat. One more question. This is from John. This is to Jackie. Jackie, I think we've had this question before. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, a hot dog is something you should not leave in a car on a sunny day.
Very sound advice, and I think that is a very, very good place to end. Massive thank you, Jackie, for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it. And I hope people watching at home will feel suitably inspired, and we'll see a whole new generation of people standing for their town and parish council. Rob, thank you for joining us, and to my 2 studio guests, Jenny Ford and Lisa Spivey, thank you very much. We'll be back on your screens next month in June. Keep an eye on our social media channels on Facebook, on Twitter and on Instagram for all the latest from the Cotswold District Council. See you next month. Thank you very much.